Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in Richland County. Dr. John Boyle is accused of killing his wife Maureen and burying her body.
The 12-year-old son finally took the stand.
Boy confidently told the jury it was his decision to testify against his father.
I heard a scream. I heard a thud. It was about this loud.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, and always with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation, what's going on? What's going on? Happy, Thursday afternoon, 12:30 Pacific time. Not Eastern time, 3:30. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I have an extra special guest. We are going to discuss Donna Adelson's trial, which is happening. As you guys know, I've interviewed Ruth Markel on the show before. I have also spoken to Dan Markel's friends and obviously been on Surviving the Survivor, which has covered a great deal of this. And their booker, Stephen Cohen, is the one who introduced me to Ruth Markel. So I've been interested in this case. I haven't been following it in as much detail as others have, like my guest today, who is Katie Cool Lady on YouTube. She is an advocate, is a homicide survivor herself with the unfortunate murder of her sister. And she is here to share some really unique perspective on this case because she has been involved, I think, since the beginning, but she's going to tell us all about that. I just learned some other things about her, and I'm actually going to bring her back on my actual podcast because she's fabulous, but she's going to give us all the details before she heads off in the morning to Tallahassee. So without further ado, welcome, Katie Cool Lady.
Hello, beautiful human.
How are you?
I'm looking at you, Collier, and you probably hear this all the time from people, but I feel like I've known you since you were a child.
Aw.
You know, I mean, I was introduced to you when you were a child from your case, and I saw, you know, in your opening those images of you, and like just remembering how that plucked at my heartstrings when I saw, you know, you the first time on the witness stand and looking at your face like you grew up, you know, you made it.
I'm all grown up. I mean, I should say this. I portray an image of being grown up, but I'm really still that same little 12-year-old boy inside. In a lot
that 12-year-old boy was like a little man, you know. I mean, I remembered the first time I saw that just being incredulous that this is actually a child, and you know, the composure. And anyway, we could go on and on about that, but I feel like I know you.
and now you really do know me.
Yes, it's my honor to meet you.
Well, it's my honor to have you on the show because you have done such, I mean, would you call it a deep dive? Would you just call it research? Would you call it just advocacy? I think it's a whole stew of all of these things when it comes to all things Dan Markel and the Adelsons, and just like, what a mess, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I was really struck with the hearing this morning of the vast conspiracy of this and the length of time that it's taken for this case to find justice and the impact of that, you know.
But it is interesting to see. One of the things that I think, and I'm going to let you have the stage here in a second, but I want to say this because this is one of the things from my perspective that I think is really interesting with this case is you had Sigfredo Garcia and what's the other gentleman's name? I can't remember, but you had those guys go down. Then you had Catherine McManaway go down. Then you had Charlie Adelson go down. Now you got Donna teed up. And who knows what other dominoes will fall. But I feel like in a lot of ways, and this is probably speaks a lot to the tenacity of Dan's family, in particular his mother, Ruth, but the tenacity and even that of the community that surrounded them, that they're still going after everyone. You know, a lot of times I feel like in cases, they, you know, okay, cool. We got our man. We're good. We knew who did it. And people are like, no, there's still work to be done. And that's I think it's something to really be marveled at because it's very unique. I feel like you don't see this normally in cases like that, where the community says, we're not done here. No. We're not done here. You guys aren't done. and let's keep going. And it's a good trend to see in the justice system for sure.
Hearing you say that is making me think about something I haven't thought about before, that I think, because people do ask the question a lot, like, why so much interest in this case? And I think part of that is because of the stall. There was like, they got the people that the Adelsons hoped would take the fall for this. They got them. And then there's like this dead space. And in that dead space were all these shows. Dateline 2020, Over My Dead Body podcast came out. And like people like me watch that stuff, realizing that these rich people got away with this, as Georgia Cavalman says, in the way they intended to get away with it. And they did. And it just sparked an absolute outrage in me, just like, I got to follow this trial. There has to be something more. And the waiting and waiting and waiting then. So I think that stall ignited in people this just fervor for justice for these Adelsons, I think you're muted.
I am muted. Good catch. We caught that, just to say, we caught that early. Normally I'll speak for about a minute. But since you're here to be like, Collier, I think you're muted. I think it's, we're 10 years in the making. And I think it is in a lot of ways. And you want to see them just get that swift justice. But I think in a lot of ways, it's almost more poetic that they have all this time to just have this anvil hanging over their head for a decade, and then the hammer's going to drop, because it's almost like, and I don't mean to be crass or vile or anything like that, but it's almost like a way of torture. You know what you did, and you have to live with it, and then so not only are you tearing yourself up inside, but now you're also going to go away for the rest of your life, which is, not a fun thing.
They definitely tortured Charlie there, after the arrest, like after the Katie arrest and stuff like that. Charlie was definitely tortured after that. I don't know about Wendi. I think she's a different ilk altogether.
Well, yeah. And again, not to, I always say on the show, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not in law enforcement. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of shit. But in my analysis, a lot of these people, for sure, when you are talking about something that's so cold and callous, there probably is no real torture of their own. They don't feel anything, much like my father is the same way. It's a psychopath, right? It's everyone else's fault. It's people are expendable to them, which is really unfortunate to see. But in the end, they're going to spend the rest of their lives in prison, most likely. So all that said, can you take us up to, there's a very important hearing this morning. You're getting ready to go to Tallahassee for the trial, which jury selection begins, I believe, Tuesday, right? The 17th. And can you take us from where we sort of left off with Charlie's trial and his conviction until now?
Sure. So here's a little personal tidbit. I was down there for Charlie's trial. He was convicted on my birthday, Collier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I saw him convicted and then headed back home a week later. I got back to my house the day. Here I get back home, popping champagne with my husband, just, reconnecting and having our little celebration. I'm in my pajamas and I get this call. They're arresting Donna at the airport. 1 week to the day that Charlie was convicted. So, they're picking her up at the airport. So like, boom, like there was no like real rest period, like, boom, we're like right into Donna now. And like she got arrested because of this hot mic call. And it was picked up that she was talking about fleeing and talking about getting to the airport and researching non-extradition countries and all that. So they expedited it. Because there was a grand jury that was assembled for the following Wednesday, and people were just sort of surmising that the reason was to, indict her and or Harvey. And so they just escalated their flight and tried to take off, got arrested in a freaking jetway.
Yeah, it's weird because one would think, but again, this speaks to the sort of nature of the people, who they are. My father's the same way. They're so arrogant and they're so entitled, and they think that everyone is beneath them, that no one would figure out that you're talking on the phone to your son in jail. You've bought plane tickets that are very easy to be found online. You are discoverable. You are traceable. You are being monitored. And that you think you can just jump on a plane and jet away. It's unbelievable.
It
But
really is.
to them, it's unbelievable that we don't think that they're going to get away with it. Too.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you've listened to any of the jail calls between Donna and Charlie after he got convicted. Maybe one day, I mean, they're a bit addicting, but they're fascinating because what you're just talking about is so illustrated between the two of their personality disorders just bouncing off each other, and that entitlement, and that, like you said, everybody being beneath them and them feeling like whoever they selected did a perfect job. It's like, dude, a perfect job. You were convicted in 2.5 hours. I mean, you were handily convicted, and like they can't even have the wherewithal to think that perhaps mistakes were made. And then, so like back to Donna. So what does she do? She turns around and hires the exact same attorney that got Charlie convicted.
Which is also an interesting wrinkle. Like what are they thinking?
I say he's like a consigliere. And my husband thinks that, and he's not even a criminal attorney, he's a white collar attorney. And let me tell you, it showed. I mean, I speak a lot about Daniel Rashbaum on my channel because I observed him in the courtroom and I made a lot of notes, and I go back and look at my notes, and I was noting, because I've sat through a lot of murder trials and I know what good defense attorneys look like, and he's terrible. In my opinion, he's not good. And so then, he's not experienced in that work, and it shows. So they just turn around and hire him. But my husband says it's because he probably has been covering up their financial crimes for a long time. Like he's their guy and he knows where all their financial bodies are buried. So they just trust him. But it's created all these wrinkles because now there's all this conflict because he represented Charlie and then a week later he's representing Donna, and they could turn on each other because they're co-conspirators. So he can't exactly, like a fresh face for her would give her the best array of options. But because he's represented Charlie, he's limited in that way. So it's very tricky in terms of conflict of interest, between that. And that's going to come up over and over in the trial, I think,
Wow.
And then Charlie's going to come and testify against her with his same attorney that represented him. It's just most every attorney weighing in says that's a very, very bad decision on his part. I don't know what's motivating. This man went on a podcast after Charlie was convicted and saying Donna reminds him of his mother.
Boy.
Something's wrong with him. I think something's wrong with this Daniel Rashbaum. He's not a normal criminal defense attorney that I've seen.
Yeah, I think he was interviewed on Surviving the Survivor. That's the interview that I saw him on. He
said Donna reminds him of his mother. He thought that was a good thing to say. He thought that was a smart thing to say.
Boy.
Yeah.
So now leading into this, I put here in the title, matriarch or mastermind. What is your, having been through this for so long, what are your thoughts on her? Was she the orchestrator? Is she the puppet master?
Okay, there's a really good YouTube channel called Guilty Words, and I was listening to it yesterday where she breaks down this correspondence she's like a semantics analysis person or something, and she breaks down the correspondence between Wendi and Donna, and I am like totally in agreement with this person. I think Wendy's the mastermind. And I think she knew the buttons to push in Donna to get the wheels moving, and that she knew that Donna would act on it. But I think Wendi is the one that calculated the whole thing. But she knew how to play all the players, and I think she's turned on all of them. I don't think she's in correspondence with Donna at all since she got arrested. And she completely abandoned Charlie after he was convicted. So, she's just sort of like, you want to talk about a psychopath. I think she's really the mastermind in terms of the concept, but she just knew the buttons to push to get the job done through all these people. That's what I think.
Wow.
I think she's the sickest of all of them. I think Wendi Adelson is the sickest. and the most evil, really. That's my opinion. You should listen to this YouTube channel, Guilty Words. It's like really eye-opening. But I had already thought that, but it was like, okay, you now explain to me why I think that.
Huh. I didn't realize that. Again, I follow this. I follow this, and I follow a bunch of stuff. So I didn't really. I guess partially for me, because for the sake of the children, because that's always sort of where my head goes as a child who was in the middle of all of this very similar situation. Nothing good comes out of it, right? Their lives are scarred, and to have their mother be participatory it just seems like oh man,
it's terrible. And it's complicated, because people are complex, but I just have simplified it in my head to this, that if you believe that she was complicit in any way, and I don't think there's any way that Donna and Charlie would have done this without her approval. I just don't think they're going to kill the parent that no one has ever said one word about him being a bad parent. It's not like he was abusive or trying to protect the children or anything. I don't think that they would have killed the parent of her children without her permission and approval, at least checking it out with her. So, I believe she knew, and she cruised the crime scene right after the murder. And Charlie certainly thinks that her cruising the crime scene was a huge piece of evidence that convicted him. And so I think that's a huge part of Wendi. And I don't know where I'm going with this.
What do you mean by that? Charlie thinks that her cruising the crime scene was a huge piece of evidence in convicting him.
He talks about it obsessively on the jail calls, that Wendi cruising the crime scene is something that cannot be explained away. And he thinks that was the piece of evidence that was the tipping point to get his guilty conviction, was that there's just no way that you can explain Wendi cruising the crime scene an hour within the murder took place, out of her way of where she was supposed to be going. She literally drove down this residential street full of speed bumps and everything and called it a shortcut, went to a liquor store very far from her house. Then when she could have gone to 2 or 3 near her house. I mean, it's clear. And she's lied at least 3 times about why she was on that street and how she was on that street. So she keeps lying about it. Every time she comes to court, she tells a different story. I cruised that crime scene. I know. I took that drive that she took, and I know she's lying. So, she's also lying about. And so Charlie, he's obsessing over that over and over about, like, that is the one thing you can't explain. Why was she at the crime scene? And I also think it's one thing that probably wasn't in the plan. And so he couldn't control that. She just sort of wild carded that, and thought she could get away with it that day. And she got seen. So, yeah. So my point is, what I was going to say earlier is that I kind of define Wendi Adelson on the fact that she had her children's father killed. That's all I need to know about her.
Yeah.
That's not a mother. You know this better than anybody. A parent who loves their child is not going to kill the other parent out of sheer, I'm not going to torture my child and condemn them for the rest of their life with this trauma, because you care more about the child than you do yourself. That's normal. And the fact that she could do that is all I ever need to know about her. I've simplified it to that in my head. It's psychopathy, that's the only thing that explains it to me. You know that better than anybody.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to win at all costs. Life is expendable. I'll just explain it away. I'll gaslight the hell out of my. Speaking of gaslight, you saw the movie last night. You were saying, I'll gaslight it away out of my children. I want to go back to what you were saying, though. I always say in this show, never underestimate the predictability of stupidity. It seems like there's a lot of predictable, stupid things that these characters have done that have just tipped their hand to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
What has been the hearing today? Tell us a little bit about what went on this morning.
It was complex, and I kind of know this case. Not as well as some people do, but I know it pretty well. And there were some things like, I need this all broken down for me. In fact, Joel was texting me during the hearing, like, do you know what this means? We were both a little bit, it was a lot of information is what I'm saying. But listening to Tim Jansen, one thing came clear to me, and this was new information, and that, they seized a lot of electronics subsequent to Charlie's trial that weren't included in his case. So there's new information. And one of them is an email or a text or something, I believe from Donna to Charlie, that completely blows a hole in the defense that he used, which we're assuming it's going to be the same defense for Donna.
What was his defense, by the way? So just take me back a little, because I'm not 100% sure on this, and I'm just give me a refresher.
Insanity. He claims that
okay.
It's extortion. He claimed, because he has to explain away all this money that he gave to Katie, and that she was on the payroll and all this kind of stuff, which, he paid her for her role in the murder and the hitman. And so all this money exchange has to be, so he concocted, and Daniel Rashbaum assisted him in this story, that the hit happened by these two people that didn't know Dan Markel at all, drove to Tallahassee, killed him, came back, and then sent their emissary, one of their baby mama, his then girlfriend or whatever, to his house to say, oh, they killed him. They're going to set you up for killing him. And they know that you were going to give him $1 million to move to Tallahassee as a bribe. So they know you have $1 million. So they want you to pay them. And this was floated as something that would make sense, that it's like they killed him on, spec. And that then they don't even know him. And then they're going to come back and say, okay, now you need to pay us, because otherwise we're going to frame you for this murder. And then because he doesn't have all the $1 million, they put him on a layaway plan. So he starts paying every month on this layaway plan, $3,000 a month in perpetuity for them committing this crime, with the threat that they're either going to harm him or kill him or turn him over to the police. I mean, it's a completely cockamamie story, but they did float it, and it's stupid. It got Charlie convicted.
So we'd have $3,000 times 12 months is $36,000 a year, times 10 years would be $360. So it was a 30-year layaway plan. It was more like a mortgage on a house.
Yeah, right. But they also gave him all the money out of Charlie's safe, which is of course the stapled money that Donna dropped off earlier that day. So, they got this lump sum, but that wasn't enough, but they're willing to take payments on a murder that already happened, that they're going to, and he never thought to go to the police because he was afraid. It just, none of it makes any sense. And then Donna's woven into it because Donna signed the checks that went to Katie. So her literal signature is on these checks. So, that's her involvement. And then, so now they're going to have to take that and extrapolate it now over to Donna. It's insane. It's probably the most insane defense I've ever seen.
That it really is. It actually is just something that I'm just, I'm having a lot of time. By the way, a lot of people from your channel are here.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I see a lot of little links.
Go over on comments.
Society page, Kat Renee, and me and Trance. Yeah. Welcome.
Guys, I didn't even have the comments up. That's cool.
No worries. But now you get to see your people. Hey, Mama, True Crime Wifey.
Yep, all my peeps.
All your peeps are here representing.
People, by the way, you call them the movers?
Yeah. So originally my podcast was called Moving Past Murder. Then it was Moving Past Trauma. And then it was just, so I kept saying Mover Nation, because I was trying to think of some kitchen. Now it's the Call Your Landry show, because I got tired of just naming it different things. I'm starting another project called the Good Riddance podcast, which is about overcoming. Yeah. So that's a new little thing that's going to be happening. It's going to be more on an audio form. I'll put it on YouTube as well, but that's another little side project, just because I'm trying to sort of bifurcate what I do here and what I do on other platforms. It's just all I'm a creative, so I'm always.
Well, darn well, I'm going to want to invite you on my show, because I want to hear about you too. So.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, so how long is her trial expected to go for?
The state said I think 5 to 7 days, and then the defense said 2 days. So, a week to 9 days, something like that. I called it today. I'm guessing a verdict on October 2nd. It's just a total guesstimate, but I'm down there for the whole thing. In fact, I'm going for jury selection. I'll be there bright and early Tuesday morning watching them select the jury. That's my jam, the jury. So I want to see all of that process.
And so you're just there and you're just going to be watching, eyeballing them to see what their reaction is. And then you'll put that on your channel. You'll be like, hey, this is what I observed in court today.
Yeah, what I do is I give them just like anonymous nicknames. I don't even want to give them numbers.
Sure.
And so then I just talk about things like, their demographics, their basic demographics, and like their attentiveness, their body language, really, and their note taking. Are they taking notes? How are they interacting with each other? Things like that, just general stuff that the camera doesn't pick up. I mean, I'm not going to do anything even remotely identifying, but just those kind of subtle things. They're interesting to me. So I think it's something I can do,
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really cool to see, actually.
It is.
To read their reactions. And how do you get into, I mean, 'cause I'm kind of lost in all this. How do you get in to be able to do that?
Well, it's a public courtroom. You could get in. Anybody can get in.
Okay.
I
But I
have
imagine it's got to be
media.
one of the top tickets in town. So
Well, Charlie's trial it's a large courtroom. It was very easy to get in. Ruth, Ruth Markel. She seems to think this one is going to be more attended. So therefore I got him on the media list, but it really doesn't provide me, priority access or anything. I didn't know if it would or wouldn't, but I just decided to do it just in case. But there was this whole thing. I don't know if you caught this about Rashbaum was trying to move it into this tiny, tiny courtroom.
no.
And that was denied. So thank God, because that was gonna keep me out of the courtroom. And one of the main reasons I'm in there is to watch the jury. So I wouldn't have been able to do that. So he was trying to shrink it all down. And I wrote a letter to the judge about that. I did. And then that prompted this law professor to write a letter to the judge that ended up in the public record, Joe Patuto. And I mean, I just wrote saying, hey, you don't know, like, it's not just a matter of moving to a smaller courtroom. It's the circus you're going to create in the courthouse if you do that. Because I was there for Peterson. I was there for Arias. It's a circus. If you limit the seats for people, they want them even more and they're going to come out more. So you're going to have to come up with a whole system for all that. And, I was imparting that part of it. But anyway, he didn't move it. So there should be seats. I mean, you could come. Why don't you come?
Fly all the way from California. Oy vey. If I had the means, I would definitely want to go do that, but I do not. But it would certainly be interesting. I was never present. Obviously, I was present in the courtroom during my father's trial when I was testifying. But I remember, and you see this in the film, Murder Mansfield, they had to put a television monitor outside the courtroom so people could watch. And, because there were so many people that showed up, right? So I can imagine that it's so interesting because I think about, that was 30 years ago now. And you think about the access that we all have now. You can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on your phone. You can do, play-by-play tweets on Twitter or X or whatever we call it. It's one of those things that I think is such a game changer to be able to, for the general public, to see how the judicial process plays out. It's kind of cool.
It is cool. And as I've told many people, it's actually more advantageous to watch this trial at home because, like, I'm sitting behind the players. So I won't see Donna's face. I'll be behind Donna. And the mics that are in the courtroom are going to the feed. They're not going to us. Yeah. So you're in a great big room just hearing people talking at a normal level. And you're straining to hear because it's a large courtroom. So we're having to hear like all the way across the room. So, I mean, just you see like they're going close-ups on her face and all. I don't see that, So I come home after court and I watch the replay, on my TV just so I can have those views. So I thought, I can't see all that stuff very well, but I can see the jury. So I know exactly where I'm going to sit. I sit on the defense side, and I did ask Ruth's permission because my first and foremost priority is supporting the Markels. That's why I show up.
Sure.
But then I can't see on that side. You can't see the jury. So I said, are you okay if I sit over on that side so I can watch the jury? And she's fine with that. She understands what I'm doing. So, if Harvey shows up, he'll be sitting like next to me.
That'll be why. Okay. Last chance, Harvey. What it seems to me, again, I don't know, but Did this guy have any clue what's going on?
Yes.
You think?
Yep, I do think. I mean, it's his money they're spending. He was there when she dropped off the stapled money. So, I mean, at the very minimum.
Sorry, what is the stapled money? Is this the money that she gave to the undercovers, or what? Tell me about the stapled money.
The stapled money is the payment to the hitmen.
Okay.
So there, when
the
Katie
posthumous
Magdanova,
payment, the posthumous payment, right?
Right. So they did the hit. They came back to Miami. Katie went to pick up the money to pay them, went to Charlie's house, and there was perfectly wrapped, stapled, like stacks of hundreds in $1,000 stacks stapled together, which is a big part of the case because it's such an odd thing to do to staple money. And Charlie was known to have stapled money in his safe. So it was all packaged perfectly and everything like that, and washed, Collier. It was damp. It's believed that Donna physically washed this money. I'm picturing her with these long latex gloves, just, so she could get any fingerprints or DNA or whatever off all this cash. It was damp. So it's believed that she, and I think Charlie told Katie believed somehow that Donna had physically washed this money. I know. And then stapled it in these stacks, and that's how they received their payment. Oh, yeah. Somebody says in the chat, it was damp and moldy because there was another hit that was planned the month before. So a lot of people think that money was prepped a month before. So it sat there in her little packaged bag, plastic, getting moldy.
Okay. So a couple of things. So I always make jokes. You remember Carl Hyacin, right? Wrote many books, but he wrote Lucky You. He's an author, but he wrote exclusively about like Florida and all wacky shit that goes on. No offense to anyone in Florida. I think it's a beautiful state. Sunshine State. There's a lot of wonderful things about Florida. I mean, I'm a warm weather fan, so seriously, I'm all good with Florida. But there just is something in the water there with some of these people that is just not, I don't know what they think. Washing the money. Did she think that? I mean, is she so? Is she so? Is that what she thinks money laundering was? That she
right. Oh my God! It's all we spent on money laundering, right?
Get out a Tide pen and just
covering all her bases. In the she's a domestic coordinator, so she handles all the home stuff. And so I mean, like, it makes sense that she would like want to get any trace of herself disconnected from this cash. And so I'm of the belief that she's the stapler, that she stapled the money, not Charlie. Donna stapled the money because she kept stacks of money in her safe that was Charlie's money, cash. So I think she just had a system of stapling cash in her safe and used that cash.
Yeah, I think Black Widow channel member just said, isn't it illegal to damage money? And I believe, yes, it is. I believe it's a federal crime to.
Oh, with the stapler?
To I think it's actually when you damage currency in the United States, I think it's actually a federal crime. I mean, I'm sure they don't prosecute people. I worked in a bar. We used to staple the money. So I'm sure nobody's going after them. But it'd be interesting. It'd be another charge. Oh, yeah, currency destruction or what have you. Oy vey. Guys, if you have a question for my wonderful guest, Katie Kool-Lady, do a QQQ, drop a sticker if you really want some extra attention, and let us know what your questions are for her, because she is the absolute expert. Mia Wallace shows what is this? What we got going on? Soap. Okay, some cash and some.
Is there a stapler there somewhere?
No, I don't see any stapler. It just bars of soap. Okay, so if you wouldn't mind, can you take us back through the timeline from when the murder occurs of Dan? It was in the driveway, right? Or was it in the garage?
He was in the garage, and the hitman pulled up into the driveway behind his car.
Got it. She says correct. It is illegal to damage legal tender. There we go.
Now the charge is going up.
Yeah, add another charge. So how long was it? It was a couple of years before they they started arresting people. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the first arrests were in 2016 and the murder was in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was just tireless research, and it was just really a lot of luck because the neighbor happened to see this silver mica Prius, or what appeared to be that, leaving the neighborhood. Let me tell you, this is a very sleepy little neighborhood that has a speed bump like every driveway. It's not an easy neighborhood to get in and out of, and lots of signs, slow children and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not something you just race out of. So the neighbor saw that. Then really they started looking at bus cameras. So they started finding that car, and then they figured out from a bus camera image, I believe, they saw the sun pass. So and then they started looking at, they're following all these breadcrumbs, and then they find this silver mica Prius with the sun pass going down, on that date, probably up and down from Miami. And then they track it back to Sigfredo Garcia or Luis Rivera. Then they find on the rental agreement brother and another number, that's Sigfredo Garcia, and it's Katie Magbano's baby daddy.
That's wild.
Who was linked to Charlie Adelson.
SunPass, by the way, is one of those little monitors you put in the windshield that does the tolls on the toll roads for those.
Yeah, and they just happened to pick that up, the image of that, from the bus camera. Who knew the buses had cameras like that? I didn't know that.
There are cameras everywhere, which is something that just makes me. I mean, this is 10 years ago, and you wouldn't think even then, like, how prevalent our surveillance technology or whatever you want to call it has been. But it's so stunning to me that people just think they can just get away with stuff nowadays. There's, I live in a neighborhood. There's a lot of speed bumps too. There's cameras down in the intersection. Everybody's got a Ring camera. Uber drivers have cameras in their car. I mean, they can pinpoint you the GPS, the phone. I mean, it's ridiculous.
2014 though might have just been a little bit on the cusp of that.
I think so. Yeah, that's why I think it's so interesting that they actually have all of this, because it was so cuspy, right?
Yeah. And I think they also felt a lot of safety because they were so far away. I mean, it's as if they considered Tallahassee another world, another country, So, I mean, I think they had some sort of safety in that just distance,
Yeah. So, okay. So they track them down. Who do they try first? Or they try them both together?
Well, Luis Rivera took a plea. So he copped to it. He's the smartest one.
I was going to say, he's probably the smartest one out of all of this.
He is. And then they tried Katie and Sigfredo together. Sigfredo was convicted. Katie was hung jury 11-1. And somehow her completely inept, incompetent, whatever you want to call it, attorney convinced her she had a shot. And the one person that hung that jury said because she didn't want to send two parents to prison because they had kids. So it wasn't even on the evidence. So, I mean, she had a very, very, very slim chance. I mean, Katie Magbano could have saved her life. It's one of the main questions of this trial. Why didn't she take a plea? And I put that squarely on the responsibility of her attorney, Tara Kawas, that she didn't just sit her down and say, you got one chance here, and that's to take this plea and serve up the Adelsons. And because she didn't, then, it's just drug out and drug out and drug out.
And what was the plea that she didn't take, or that she was?
I believe she could have avoided prison to serve up the Adelsons. I believe she could have avoided prison to serve up the Adelsons. She was offered immunity, and she declined it. She was offered full immunity. Thank you, Tanika. And she declined it. And that Tim Jansen was talking today about that. That falls on her attorney, like an attorney should be able to convince, because she's in prison for life now, and both of her kids' parents are in prison for life.
What? Immunity?
Yep. And she did not. She thought she had a chance. She was devastated. So she's tried a second time, convicted, mandatory life without parole. She looked devastated. Like somebody convinced her she had a shot. How you would think you would have a shot when you had an 11-1 for conviction in the first trial. And the reason for the hang was not anything to do with the evidence.
Oh, so hold on. So so she had the 11-1, and then they offered her a plea deal after that?
She had a plea deal all the way along until she
she could have taken the plea deal. So, hung jury. Let's just take she could have just said, you know what? I don't want to go back. Let me take the plea deal. I'll serve up the Adelsons.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And so
I
that's
got no
what
patience for these people.
2016. When did somebody in the chat tell me when did she go to trial that first time? But like all these years, those Adelsons could have been handled. And had she taken a plea and served them up. Julie Nelson says, Tim Jansen said that deal was highly unusual. No jail for Katie. I mean, it's just
All
boggles
right, we
your
got a
mind.
couple of cues here. Let me see. Porky's Pal says, any idea what friend Sarah Youssef may have on Wendi?
So Sarah Youssef is a new witness, and she apparently had correspondence with Wendi. She was a good friend of Wendi's. See, a lot of this new evidence is pointing straight at Wendi that's coming in because she approached, there's some known correspondence between her where Wendi asks her for help in like sort of manipulating public perception when all this sort of went down, like, would you come forward and make a statement? And she declined. And she ultimately like severed ties with Wendi. Personally, they were good friends. And then I don't know if it was it after Katie's conviction, something happened and she felt like she had something to serve up. And she first contacted Markel's personal attorney. And then she was directed toward the state's attorney's office. And now she's a witness in Donna's trial. But she's a former friend of Wendi's. So it sounds like it's like evidence against Wendi that's coming in Donna's trial. But she is coming in as a witness.
Wendi Adelson is coming in as a witness against her mother.
She is too, but this Sarah Youssef is. To talk about her relationship with Wendi. And, you know, because they're conspirators and Wendi's like an unindicted co-conspirator. So all this stuff can come in about all these communications about all the different people involved. So, I mean, it's like they have very little they can wiggle out of. Oh, okay, Angela, it was Phil Markel's victim impact statement. That's what it was that made her come forward, this Youssef.
This Jess Linda asks, do you think that Wendi was trying to set up Jeff for the murder? Who's Jeff?
Jeff Lacasse is her ex-boyfriend, and I think she was just trying to throw anything and everything out there to muddy the waters, including him. Because there's a huge, you may not know this, Collier, but there's a really huge piece of evidence that comes in from Jeff Lacasse that he's her boyfriend. She's breaking up with him. And he's getting ready to go out of town the weekend of the week that Dan was murdered. And so she's breaking up with him in this parking lot of a yoga studio after this awkward yoga class. And they're like saying goodbye. And he's
Aren't all yoga classes awkward?
Yeah, right. Right there for me. Oh my God. So that's funny. So he's walking away, you know, like, you know, it's over, you know, like this is the final death knell of the relationship. And she's like, oh, by the way, hey, knock, knock, and pulls him back over and says, when are you leaving town? And like, why are you asking when somebody that you're just broke up with, when they're going out of town to go visit somebody? Well, he just happened to be going out of town at the time the murder happened. And he would be driving past the general vicinity of where the murder happened. So it appears that she wanted him to look suspicious. And then when she's going in, giving her police statement, she's throwing suspicion in his direction. So, but she didn't know that he left early the night before and didn't tell anybody. So yes, I do think that I mean, I don't know that she was really setting him up, but, you know, I think he could have, you know, gotten out of that, you know, because whatever. But I think she was just throwing everything out there. And then she was taking a walk with one of her girlfriends like the day before and like throwing all this shade on him. And he's pathologically jealous. And like, so her friend, by the way, who's a friend of his and a colleague of his, pardon me to do this on your channel, but to her. But anyway, she is in the interview with Wendi, throwing him under the bus. The friend is like, oh, well, you know, he's very jealous. And like he could have, and she was a colleague of him. He's a professor of social work. So she's in there throwing him under the bus because Wendi had sort of groomed her of like, oh, he's pathologically jealous and maybe, you know. So that's this poor guy, Jeff Lacasse, has been through it.
Yeah, clearly. Horrible people. Horrible people. Guys, by the way, if you have not liked this, please like our live stream. Helps with the algorithm. Please click that like button. Another question from Ollie says, why would the state call Rob Adelson? Now, just let me ask, Rob Adelson is the brother who's like expatriated out of the family, off the, he's like, I want nothing to do with y'all. So he's very far removed from all of this, correct?
Yes. I mean, he is and he isn't, because he's a part of this family, you know,
Sure.
I mean, by biology.
But he's never been implicated in any of these shenanigans.
No, and if you want to really hear from Rob Adelson, the one and only place that he's really spoken out loud about this is on the Over My Dead Body podcast, where he's interviewed on that with his wife, Aretha. And, you know, I don't know if they can use much about his background with Donna and his, I mean, she meddled severely in his life in terms of who he married. So, I mean, it sort of shows a pattern of that. He can speak to that. But I think more than that is that
he married an Indian woman, correct?
He did. So he was in love with this Indian woman when he was in med school. She's also a doctor. And Donna and Harvey put the screws on him relentlessly for years about this woman. So he broke up with her and married a nice Jewish girl who, you know, they approved of, and like immediately felt the regret of that and terminated that marriage and then married his love of his life. But, you know, obviously there was a lot of tension there around that. But the final death knell for, as I understand it, what he said on Over My Dead Body was that after Dan was killed, Wendi reached out to him and he was understandably like, who do you think could have done this? I mean, like, what do you think happened? Very normal, natural questions. And she kept getting mad at him for asking these questions, like shutting him down. And he, you know, my perception is that he realized, holy shit, my family doesn't want to talk about this. And that's not normal to want to inquire. They're just shutting it down. They're shutting it down because they did this. And then he severed ties with them. So I hope he does testify if he wants to.
It's you hate seeing anyone dragged into something of this, you know, of this scale and nature. It just, you know, but hopefully he comes out unscathed. You know, I mean, sure, I mean, he is scathed because he's had to deal with all this, you know, bullshit. But just the tentacles from which come out of this situation is very, oh, what a tangled web we weave, right?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I don't know about for you. I mean, you were a child, Collier, you know, in your case, obviously. I was an adult when I testified multiple times, you know, in my sister's case. And for me, I wanted to, because I had been gagged and I want to tell the truth. I want to be a part of this. You know, it was very gratifying for me to testify. You know, I mean, it was hard, but it was also like a relief and like finally I can tell the truth, you know, of what happened and have an impact here. And if Robert Adelson feels that way, I hope he gets to testify, you know, because people think, oh, it's so traumatic. Well, it wasn't for me. It would have been traumatic for me to be held back from that. You know?
I talk about that a lot, actually. And I also wanted to testify. People were like, oh, I can't believe. And, you know, I even got not even an argument, but with my mother's best friend. And she's like, I don't understand why they allowed you to. I was like, because it was over my dead body that I was not going to testify. And I'm so glad that I did, because I can hold my head up high. I can say I did what I did for the reasons that I did it. I got justice for my mother, and there's a real gratification of that. Let's forget about the justice for anyone's part. Just the fact that you can be able to go into court and speak, be your own advocate, and say this stops here. I'm not involved with this, just so your voice is heard that, look, I'm not a part of this. And I want to make known that this is horrific, what happened. And I don't condone this. Real. I don't support these people. And this is very real to me.
Yeah.
And the lives that have been impacted.
I don't know about you, Collier, but I say either I'm living with this homicide on the inside or on the outside.
Yeah.
And I get to live with it on the outside on my channel. And I got to live with it on the outside by testifying. And it's a relief because you're never not living with it. So I for Robert Adelson, I hope if that's what he wants to do, I hope he gets the chance to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the catharsis that comes along with it is it's the juice is worth the squeeze, as we like to say. Going through here, looking for our QQQ questions. Oh, there was one. So you're going down. You're going to go down on Tuesday. But this hearing today, you said there was something that came out in the very beginning of the show. What was the sort of, you said there was this timeline that was revealed?
There's something that came out that was new to me, which is some sort of email or a text between Donna and Charlie that, according to Tim, that is very critical because, his whole defense is at least Charlie's whole defense was this nonsense extortion theory. And if they're going to go with that with Donna, they have to explain like why she was writing all these checks to this person involved in the procuring this murder is because, she believed potentially in Charlie serving up that he's being extorted. And so she's also scared for her son. And so she's paying off this person. I mean, it's cockamamie, but that's consistent with their story. And apparently during that time, there's a text exchange or email between Donna and Charlie that blows that completely out of the water. It has something to do with like them guessing at theories as to why this happened and making some insinuation that Dan Markel had some cocaine problem and that it had to do something with drugs or something like that. But if they already knew that exactly what happened based on this whole extortion theory, that would have never been on the table. They already know. So why are they guessing? And according to Tim Jansen, that blows the entire defense out of the water. And what I thought was interesting is that the defense may have to change tactics. They may have to completely come up with a new game plan. And we are like days away from the trial.
And days away with an inexperienced defense attorney. You said he's a financial guy, right? Not a criminal.
He's brought another defense attorney on with him this time. So, I don't know how that's going to be different. The other guy seems much more with it than Dan Rashbaum. He's not a good attorney in my opinion.
This reminds me of my father's trial. My father's divorce lawyer was one of his lawyers. Now he played second fiddle to this high-powered defense lawyer that he brought in, whose name is Robert Whitney, who I believe is still with us and still practicing in Ohio, and was very, very, very experienced in criminal proceedings and murder trials. But it just every decision that this family seems to make is really poor.
And what we started the show is you were talking about the arrogance. The arrogance of these personality disorders, that they're above everything. And actually it was quite reinforced because they actually did get away with this for 10 years and live in the high life in Miami and raising these boys and everything they wanted to do. They did get away with it. So it was reinforced by their lives. But, now the hammer's falling.
Pride cometh before the fall.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. By the way, Amika Cream, thank you so much for, or Amika Cream. I don't know how to pronounce some of these YouTube names. Thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. Greatly appreciate that. So if you guys want to get a membership, there you go. Sign up. I think you just click the little button and you can receive the gifted membership. I believe we already answered this. Kat Renee, she asked, is Wendi testifying? And
yes.
I believe that
yes.
I can't wait for Collier to watch Daniel Rashbaum flail his arms, whinily scream and stuff. Does he do that? Does he have histrionics that go on in the courtroom?
He's interesting to watch because the people watching on the feed see one thing, but when you're sitting in the courtroom, you see another thing. And he's very performative. So when the cameras are on, when he's in front of the jury, he's got a lot of histrionics. But as soon as that's over, he's over there yucking it up with the state. Like he wants to be everybody's best friend. I mean, he blew off Charlie so many times, just had left Charlie in the dust. And he's over yucking it up with Georgia Kappelman. So, yeah, he's an interesting duck. So, yeah, but he does a lot of blustering and histrionics and not a lot of substance. And his style is bad. So he's like bad style and no substance. He's not a very good attorney. And I'm here for it, you know.
Yeah, what is it? Somebody told me. I know I've got the quote somewhere, but it was something to the effect of, I'm going to blow it. I gotta look it up. I know it's in my Apple Notes. Hang on. Talk about. Oh, let me see here. It's something to the effect of, if the evidence is on your side, talk about.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know that.
If it's not talking about the other guy's tie or something to that effect, I butchered it, guys. I thought I could have it here, just right handy to myself.
I'll tell you something funny he did, Collier, in the trial, because I was making notes on day one in my notebook of the trial. He would just stand up and say nothing. And the judge would look at him like, Mr. Rajbaum, do you have something to share? Just something to say? He wouldn't even say objection. He would just stand up, and he's really short. He's like maybe 5'2", 5'3", and he's just standing there like, dude, you know how to be in a courtroom? Like, why aren't you saying objection? He did that multiple times. And at first I felt sorry for him. I don't anymore.
When the law is against you, talk about the evidence. When the evidence is against you, talk about the law. And when both are against you, talk about the other lawyer's tie. That's the quote. I don't know where I got it from. September 6th, 2023. No idea where it came from.
That is awesome.
It was probably somebody I interviewed and I'll put it here in the chat. I think it's so funny.
That sounds like a book. Talk about the other lawyer's tie.
Yeah, it does. It does, right? Wow. So the Donna domino falls. I'm pretty much assuming that Black Widower, thank you so much for gifting more memberships. And Rue says, every time I tinkle now, I automatically assume I'm on camera. Great show, guys. Well, thank you so much for saying that. So if the Donna ends up getting convicted, do you think they're going to charge Harvey too? Do you think they're just going to go after the whole family?
I think Georgia Happelman is going to go after every last person that she can go after. But I do think that Wendi's probably next. I mean, all these things that have been dripping in have been very Wendi focused. So I think they're building. And check this out. I think this is really interesting. This occurred to me today. So Georgia Kappelman, she takes us to school a lot. And one of them is talking about, she instructs the jury on different types of conspiracy. And that there's one that's like, I don't know what the names of, but like a cluster where there's one person in the middle and they talk to everybody. There's one where everybody talks to everybody who's in the team. But this one is called a train. So one person talks to one person and they're not talking to anybody on the either. They're just talking to the one person on one side of them, or the two people, like Charlie's talking to Donna and Katie, but Donna's not talking to Katie and Charlie's not talking to Sigfredo. It's just a train that goes like that. So when they did the film, they call it tickling the wire. So they tickled the wire on this end and they masterfully point out how it goes from Donna to Charlie to Katie to Sigfredo, then back Sigfredo, Katie, Charlie, Donna. The communication, literally, you can see the train of the communication moving through. That's how this conspiracy was, the architecture of this conspiracy. But the part that's missing is the one on the other side of Donna, which is Wendi. So I think that train, once Donna's train car is in prison, it's going to tip right over to Wendi. So I don't know about Harvey. I don't know if they have enough on him. But if they do, they will go after him.
What a waste to begin with. Just what a waste of life.
Charlie Adelson had 1 million frequent flyer miles.
Where did those go?
He was saving them up for his life that is now with a target on his back from the Latin Kings, running from prison to prison to prison to stay alive. His million frequent flyer miles. They probably went to Harvey and Donna. I mean, maybe Harvey will travel the world with him. Who knows? 1 million. So, I mean, this is the level that they were living, and they're all, they're ending up in prison.
And just also, what a way. I mean, look, I say this in my father's case. To what end does this serve anyone? This is always my perspective on violent crime. I'm sure you feel the same way. To what end does this serve anyone? Everyone goes to prison. Dan Markel is dead. His family mourns him. There's going to be 2 kids who are most likely going to be without both parents. And how old are Lincoln and Benjamin now?
13 and 15, I think now.
Yeah. Old enough to know they can watch everything on TikTok. I mean, it's, these poor kids that this is what they're growing up with. And then they have to live with I know firsthand the duplicitous nature of one of their parents taking the life of another one in for what reason?
Well, let me tell you, one of my hopes for those boys is that they find Collier Landry. That they do find you someday and realize that their lives were not destroyed, that they had one parent who killed their other parent, and they can shine like you're shining. And you're out there living your life as an example, as a real example to them who survived that and is thriving. And I hope one day they find you.
That's very kind and very humbling. And yes, I do. I would concur. I do hope that they find me too.
There's very few people on this planet. Allison Galvani's another one.
Yeah.
Very few people planet. They're in that tiny club, but you guys are finding each other, and they need someone like you. And I hope they do find you.
Yeah, me too. It's a hard row to hoe, that's for sure. But it can be done. That's
you're thriving. Look at you. You're not destroyed. And that's one of my things with my channel is that people come in with this like gloom and doom about these boys and their lives are going to be destroyed. It's not, that's not necessarily their path.
No,
it's not an easy road, but you can thrive. You can have your own life,
I mean, in that, yeah, I mean, that's a great point because it is not an easy road, but ultimately it is the easier path. The easier path is to acknowledge hope and say, okay, I can change. I can move forward. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm healthy. I can be different than where I came from. I don't need to live in that shadow. Yes, I grieve. Yes, I deal with it. Yes, I have bad days. Yes, I have great days. I have way more great days than I have bad days. And there are a lot of things in life that are really challenging that are independent of that because it's just life. But you can, when you make that choice, it's a whole, you realize that there is no choice because to wallow in that and you see, my heart always, and I talk about, I spent some time in a mental institution when I was younger for about 5 days in a hospital. And I remember seeing some of the other kids that were there. I was supposed to be there for 3 weeks and I was out in 5 days. And I remember seeing some of the other kids that were there. And that was one of those moments that was so pivotal in my life. I was 15 at the time. And I remember I was trying to define when I really learned compassion, not only for myself and what I learned from my mother, but also for other people and seeing choices and understanding consequences of actions or mindset. And that was one of those pivotal moments where I saw people struggling and going, okay, if you can make that choice, you make that choice. You make that choice to be better for yourself, what have you, because the alternative is not any fun,
Right. And it sounds like the stuff that you're doing, like with your new show you were talking about and your new podcast and stuff like
Yeah.
that, is about making that choice over and over and over again for yourself.
Yeah.
It's not like you make that choice one time and poof, but there are moments, there have been for me that have been one thing I said to myself the last day in the trial is that they may have gotten my sister's life, but they're not going to get mine.
Yeah.
And, and then that dedication to, I'm going to claim my own life that is not going to be swallowed up by these sociopaths, and like there's continual choices along the way and you've made them. I mean, your movie is out there, Collier. I mean, they could find your movie, even if they don't ever talk to you for that inspiration. I mean, you went and confronted your dad in prison and very likely their mother's going to end up in prison and they're going to be in the exact same boat you're in. So, I mean, you really are carving a way out for these boys to follow, and damn it, they're going to need that,
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. It's very humbling. I'm trying to take it all in stride. I appreciate you. It's very.
Collier's movie is on Prime, by the way, on Amazon. For those people that don't know that, I bought it.
You can also buy it here on the channel too. There's a link to purchase it.
Yeah, it's right there on Amazon. I own it, and I'm going to watch it again. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it on my phone, and I'm going to listen to it when I'm driving down to Tallahassee. I decided that today, so I can listen to it kind of like a podcast.
There you go.
That'll entertain me while I'm going down there. It's a very good movie, you guys. It's very deep and it's very risky and things he's doing, and he's really confronting things, and it's an important film. So. Yeah, I think I saw it too when it streamed somewhere, and then I went looking for it again, and then I found it. You can purchase it on Prime.
Yeah, you can get on Prime. You can get on this channel here, and then I actually get that money when you guys purchase it here on the channel. But
okay.
Yeah, but it's it's directed by two-time Oscar winner Barbara Koppel. So it was one of those. Well, that was one of those key things in my life that like I had to do to move forward, right? And I'm an artist. I've always been an artist. It was amazing to be able to do it with such talented people. My dear friend John Morrissey, who made American History X, produced it with me as well.
Oh, so wow!
It's a
well done film, just for a film's sake. But I mean, the fact that you went and confronted your dad in prison and that's filmed and just all that stuff, I want to go back there and visit that. But this is going to be the life of Dan Markel's boys. This looks like that's their future, and they're going to need roadmaps, and you've provided that unknowingly to these boys, and let's hope they find it.
Yeah. Jared Ross is here. Dan Markel's friend.
I look forward to seeing Jared down in Tallahassee.
Yeah, there he is. He was on the show not too long ago. Thanks for joining, Jared. Appreciate that. He says, everyone is innocent until, hold on, everything's going fast. Is innocent until found guilty in a court of law. That does not mean we are not entitled to our opinions on someone's innocence or guilt. Yes, very true. What's up, buddy? How are you, man? Thank you for joining us. As I like to say, too, on the new slogan on the new show will be, it's not a dumpster fire when you're the one who's holding the match.
Wow.
Yep. That's going to be a t-shirt. Thought of that yesterday.
That is a t-shirt.
That's the t-shirt right there. You heard it here first. Katie Cool Lady, thank you so much for coming on the program, giving us your time, being so generous. I know you got a lot of packing to do and you got a whole trip. You're driving down, you're driving down from where to where?
Pennsylvania. Yeah. I'm in central Pennsylvania. So I'm driving 8 hours tomorrow. I'm probably going to go live tomorrow night on my channel, after my 8-hour drive, just to wind down, and then I have 2 more drives. And then do you know what, Collier? I am, Charlie was convicted on my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is what, by the way?
November 6th.
November 6th.
And the day after I arrive in Tallahassee, where I'm going to do some recon at the courthouse, is my sister's birthday.
Oh, wow.
So as I say, the Monkman sisters are coming for you, Donna.
Ooh, good luck with that. A force to be reckoned with. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Katie, where can my audience find you? Obviously, you have the channel. Plug your stuff.
That's it. I just have my YouTube channel. Like I said, I'll be going live at Donna's trial at lunch and after court. So I'm going to sort of figure out, the timing of all that, but I don't eat lunch. And so that's very easy for me. That's what I'm going to do on Monday is I'm going to go over and find a perch to set up my stuff at the lunch break. So I'll be going and giving, like, what I say is I do like color commentary. So things that you don't see on the feed, like, for example, last time I walk out of the bathroom and boom, there's Wendi Adelson sitting right there on the bench. So, just stuff that you're not seeing in the courtroom. I'm providing that, like behind the scenes stuff, and also the jury, watching the jury. So I'm going to be doing that on my channel. So that's it.
Well, thank you for making the trek down there, being so dedicated to this case, and just giving us such great information, bringing me up to speed. I greatly appreciate it. I will have links to Katie's channel in the show notes of today's episode. Thank you all so much, wherever you may be and however you may have been watching or listening. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Katie Kool-Lady, I'm so grateful to have met you, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
I feel like I have a new friend.
I know we've officially. I've heard so much about you over the last year, and so it's great to actually have you a part of it.
I'm going to watch Collier's movie, and I'm going to ask my people from my channel to also find a way to watch it, and then we'll do a show where we talk about Collier's movie.
I love it. I love all this.
Yeah, so we will do that soon, after Donna's trial, obviously, but we'll do
that. And I'll be tuning into yours tomorrow night after you get settled. So thank you again so much for joining the program. Appreciate everything you're doing.
Thanks for
safe travels to you, please.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, we'll see you.
All
right. Mover Nation, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much to my guest, Katie Kool-Lady. Please go to her channel, subscribe, click that alert bell. She's going to be doing a lot of great stuff in the next couple of weeks at Donna Adelson's trial. Check it out. And obviously our friends over at Surviving the Survivor, big shout out to them as well. And thank you so much to our mods today. On that note, guys, here's the outro. Mover Nation, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to all my channel members and Patreon supporters. And for more exclusive content, behind the scenes videos, monthly VIP meet and greets, and watch parties, please consider supporting me on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube channel member. If you like this video, check out this one right here or this one right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps with the algorithm. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. I'll see you on the next one. Good girl, Marisol. Good girl.